This is an analysis of a consistent pattern in human behavior, the observable delay between recognizing the need for action and executing that action. The primary phenomenon is not refusal. The necessity for change is often acknowledged. The potential outcomes are considered. But recognition does not translate into action. In the space between thought and execution, time passes. The interval between understanding a problem and addressing it expands. This pattern is observable across personal and professional domains. A change is identified as necessary. The core question is, what are the mechanics behind the prolonged inaction? The process begins with an internal calculation. In this cognitive assessment, the status quo is heavily favored. To the brain, change is not registered as improvement, it is registered as disruption. It introduces instability into a system that is perceived to be functional. The brain's primary function is to maintain safety through predictability. Therefore, this disruption is flagged as a threat, and action is suspended.
A key cognitive bias in this calculation is known as temporal discounting.
This bias creates a fundamental conflict. The cost of implementing change, the expenditure of energy, and the experience of discomfort is immediate intangible. The potential benefit, however, is located in the future, rendering it abstract and less valuable in the present calculation. The immediate cost consistently outweighs the distant benefit. Two additional cognitive barriers contribute to inaction. First, the cost of decision-making. A decision eliminates all other potential paths, which the brain processes as a net loss. Delay preserves the illusion of optionality. Second, the fear of regret. The uncertainty inherent in change introduces the possibility of a worse outcome. Avoiding this potential negative result is often prioritized over pursuing a potential positive one.
Cognitive energy is a finite resource. Initiating change consumes significant amounts of this resource. By contrast, maintaining existing patterns is energy efficient. When cognitive resources are limited, the system defaults to the path of least resistance, the established routine. Beyond cognitive calculations, delay is reinforced by deeper structures. The inertia of personal identity and social systems creates powerful resistance. The individual is anchored by three systems. The internal narrative, or the story one tells about oneself, may conflict with the requirements of change. The social equilibrium, a network of relationships built on predictable behaviors, is threatened by new patterns. And invested time. The longer an individual has maintained a system, the greater the perceived cost of abandoning it. This means significant behavioral change is resisted because it is correctly perceived, not just as a change in action, but as a demand to redefine identity. This is a formidable psychological task. The status quo is not a passive state. It is an active system that reinforces its own continuation through routine and human adaptation. Most conditions requiring change are not catastrophic failures. They are suboptimal but functional. This state of tolerable dysfunction creates an illusion of sufficiency. Without a critical failure, the urgency required to motivate action remains low. This leads to a process of normalization. A condition is initially recognized as unacceptable. Through continued exposure, the associated discomfort becomes familiar. The brain then recategorizes the condition from unacceptable to manageable. Once this threshold is crossed, the primary motivation for change dissipates. The perception of risk is also a factor. The risk associated with change is perceived as a single, concentrated event in the immediate future, which feels intense. The risk of inaction, however, is distributed over a long period. This distributed risk feels manageable, even as its cumulative negative effect grows. Given these powerful forces reinforcing the status quo, delay is the default state. Change, therefore, typically occurs only when that default state is forcibly disrupted. Change is therefore a reactive phenomenon, not a proactive one. It is a response forced by external pressures, a deadline, a consequence, a loss, that makes a reevaluation of the status quo unavoidable. Delay is not a neutral state. Over time, negative consequences accumulate. Unproductive habits become more deeply ingrained, and viable options are gradually eliminated. The act of waiting actively increases the difficulty of the eventual change. The mechanism of this forced change follows a sequence. First, the discomfort of the current state increases beyond a tolerable level. Second, alternative paths are removed. Third, Internal or external pressure becomes acute. Finally, a threshold is crossed. The cost of maintaining the status quo becomes greater than the perceived cost of changing.
Action is taken not because the change has become easier, nor because motivation has increased. It is taken because inaction is no longer a viable option. It is a function of necessity, not preference. If most people delay change until it becomes unavoidable, what would make someone act before that point arrives?